about to hear a revolution in talk radio, Liberty Talk Radio, where the critical thinking will defrag your mind of propaganda-ridden viruses induced by mass media news programming. No BS here, just the facts.
And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Libertarian Voice, broadcasting from our studio in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to around the world. And I'm Joe Cristiano. I'm your host, and this is your antidote to popular talk radio. This broadcast is being brought to you live on Thursday morning, February 19th, 2015. It is now about 8:01 a.m. Central Time in what was once known as the good old USA. Folks, it's time for us to take back control of our government now before this bureaucratic, oversized, and self-serving federal government starves us of our property, our freedom, our rights, and our liberty. But to do this, we must shed conventional thinking regarding our political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. Only after we recognize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution will we start taking it back. And this program is just about that. Before we get started, I'd like to also remind our listeners to subscribe to our reminder service by visiting our website and clicking on the subscribe icon. And those of you who tweet, our Twitter address is @LibertyJoe. Now on to our show. By the way, is those earphones in? They're plugged in? Okay, I was just checking. All right. This morning, we are pleased to have as our returning guest Andy Sutton. He's an economist from the and financial advisor from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Andy writes a blog called My Two Cents. He is probably one of the most articulate and writers on the subject of economics that you can find. I do suggest you look him up, and he'll give you all the particulars on where to find him later on. His articles are short, succinct, and right to the point. Today, Andy would like to talk about the effects of the geopolitics, on the financial scene. So do we have Andy on the line now?
Right here.
Andy, welcome and good morning to you.
How you doing, Joe?
Okay. Hurting a lot after my surgery, but maybe I'll make it. If not, I'll have someone take over for me.
Oh, I'm sure you'll do fine. You're like the Energizer Bunny.
Yeah. My battery's running out, though, I think. Andy, you wanted to talk a little bit about geopolitics. So let's take it from there. What is the real definition of geopolitics?
That's a really good question because it depends who you listen to. A lot of people will tell you that, it's just how different countries interact and things like that. And I've kind of decided to coin another term, kind of a sister term to geopolitics, called geoeconomics, because I think this is more what it's about. It's not really about politics, although they do suck a lot of blood out of us. It's more about economics and figuring out who's going to get the power and who's going to get the seats at the table and all of this kind of thing. So, but I think the idea of talking about this whole oil situation is a good one, just because of the fact that this is something everybody notices. So, and everybody's welcoming, $2 and whatever you happen to be, cents gas and all this kind of thing. But there's reasons behind that, and it's probably not a bad idea to look at some of what's going on there and some possibilities for why this might be taking place, because it's the eye as usual.
Well, what is your number one concern today?
Today?
Yeah, regarding the geopolitical arena.
Well, there seems to be, and this might be early, I'll preface it by saying that I don't like to time things, but we're starting to see a situation here where, and I'm just looking off my other screen here, so pardon me for looking away here for a few minutes. We've seen some bank failures, not here so far yet at least, but over in Europe. We've had, this whole Ukrainian situation with the package that's been offered to them is really geared towards saving French and German banks. And then not too long ago here, Austria's third largest bank, back in the 11th, about a week ago, they went belly up, Bear Stearns style. So there's fractures starting to happen again, and it's reminiscent of what happened back in 2008, where it started out somewhat quietly. You had your Bear Stearns happened early, then by the summertime it was Freddie and Fannie, and then it was AIG, and then the whole house came down.
Yeah.
So we're starting to see a replay of this, or at least the beginnings of a replay. Whether it goes full bore or not, who knows? But we're starting to see a replay of this over in Europe. And what people have to keep in mind always with this, every one of these banks could be saved. The way this money system is set up, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that, this, I can't even pronounce the name of this bank. I'm not very good at Austrian, but Raiffeisen Bank, they owed, who knows what their leverage was and all that, but it could be printed. It certainly could be taken away from the counterparties. They could do a bail-in. I mean, they have several options available to, save these banks. So when they let one go, kind of like what happened with Lehman Brothers back in 2008, when they let one go, that's when you really have to pay attention and say, all right, well, what really is going on here? They must have annoyed somebody, because all of these guys pretty much could be saved. So we're starting to see that kind of a situation happen again, this time over in Europe. And if it does go full blown, it will spread over here, since we're all tied together. So right now, I think that's probably the biggest concern that I have as far as people's money and the status of safety and things like that. Because don't forget, excuse me, when one of these guys goes under, all of these countries in the EU now, a few months ago, were ordered basically by the Union to structure a bail-in for their particular country. And a lot of them are using our template as their own. And so this is all set up here, where when these things start to happen, it's not going to be the big people that lose. It's going to be the little people.
Well, isn't it so that currently the larger banks, the J.P. Morgans et al., are in bed with derivatives, notional value of derivatives between $30 and $60 trillion. So when we say we can bail them out, is there really enough money to bail them out today compared to where they were back in 2008?
Well, see, here's the thing. You don't actually have to come up with $30 or $60 trillion. A derivative, let's say it's an option. That's a pretty common type of derivative. What you could do, or one of the things that could be done, say J.P. Morgan fails. Well, all right, they have, $1 trillion worth of options written. Well, somebody owns the other half. Somebody's the counterparty on that option. And what the regulators could simply do is say, you're out of luck. Okay. You're not going to get $1 trillion.
Yeah.
So they kind of make it a shared loss amongst the system and kind of ease it down that way. Now, obviously, you get to the point where you're talking about 60, 100, or the whole system, several hundred trillion. It becomes an awful lot harder to do that. But when you have these little, spurious things like what we have going on right now in Europe, those could be taken care of. It's kind of like when the stock market takes a dive. They sit there and people will talk about the plunge team and all this sort of thing. They could pump that up. They could have pumped it up in 2008. There's a finite number of stocks. The stock market in this country, especially the Dow Jones, comparatively speaking, like to the derivative market, is not that big. That didn't have to happen. If we were going to do this whole, bailout, pump the markets kind of thing. So you have to, again, you have to look at, why is this happening? Well, first of all, it was to consolidate wealth. You just have to keep that in the back of your head when you're looking at all of these events. And that was probably a 5-minute answer that could have been done in 30 seconds. But I'm a little slow this morning.
Well, why was, when long-term capital management's algorithm failed, Why was that such a catastrophe then? Why couldn't that have just been papered over a lot easier than it was?
Well, see, we weren't really in the mindset at that point of just papering everything over. That was, that was 1998. Right. So, the idea of papering things over, that was 10 years away still. It wasn't ensconced in the average person's, consciousness, so to speak. So coming out and doing it, basically, you look back even before that to the S&L situation where, for lack of a better term, they did do something along the lines of a bailout. But it was not a mainstream thing. And frankly, when you look at long-term capital management, there's and I don't want to speculate too much because that's exactly what it would be, a speculation. There's good reason to believe that the management there annoyed some people, and okay, well then you're going to take a dive.
Yeah. And
there's good reason to believe that Dick Fuld at Lehman Brothers did similarly and torqued some people. Now, all right, well then you're done. You failed. We're no loans, no soup for you.
Right.
It was like a Seinfeld thing. You had the loan guy there sitting there saying, no loan for you. 2 years. Well, I can't make it 2 years. Well, tough. You're out of business.
Well, aren't we backward looking in the financial sector? For example, we're always looking at what happened 20, 30 years ago and say, well, let's prevent this from happening again. But whatever happens again is never the same. Something new comes up. So we're always trying to protect ourselves from an incident that may never occur again, and the new ones we allow to go unfettered. Just total wildfire.
Yeah, that's the way it is with everything, though, when you think about it. You look at, I'm trying to think of an example here real quick. Ecological disasters, even. The way we try to prepare, we look back, all right, well, we don't want to have another Dust Bowl. Okay, that's good. That's a good thing not to have. But then, what do we get zapped by? We get zapped by genetically engineered crops that have no diversity, and we're one pest, one bug, one parasite away from losing a third of our wheat crop or a third of our corn. So it's a different catastrophe because things change. Obviously things aren't the same now financially or economically as they were 50 years ago. So you're going to have different problems. The problem is we don't anticipate.
That's right.
What the new problems
right. Now
we're looking in the rearview mirror trying to drive the car. That just doesn't work. We're not seeing the semi sitting right in front of us.
Yeah. Well, the way I see, if I look at the global economic conditions that we have today, the way I see it, and of course it's a myopic point of view, is that if you look at Southern Europe, cut Europe in half, just take the southern and northern half, the southern segment of Europe is in depression mode. We're talking about unemployment rates of 20, 30% and whatever. We have a slowdown in the commodity sector because there is a lot of debt that people don't, there's a lot of cheap money, but people don't have enough money in order to pay their everyday expenses, so they're not going out and buying all the new things. They're not compounding the buying. If you listen to if you've ever watched television, you'll find that probably 50% of what you're watching are all TV ads to please buy something. Cars are being given away for nothing, although the prices are very high. No one talks about the price. No one knows that they're paying $47,000 for a Chevy today. But it's free financing. 0% down, 0% financing, 0 payments for 3 months, 0 maintenance for 12 months, all this other stuff. Everything is always zero. Nothing costs you anything, and yet they can't even push enough cars out the door. And now auto loans are going into default. We sort of have like we had the housing bubble, we have an auto loan bubble. I can go on and on and on, but you see where I'm going. We seem to be in a deflationary depression. And worldwide, I don't see any really heavy-duty glimmer of hope anywhere that could possibly reverse this trend. And it seems like negative interest rates is another something I just absolutely love. Negative interest rates. By the way, I will never lend anyone money on negative interest rates. My Uncle Louis belonged to this big organization. When they lent money out, it was 6 for 5, and it was the reverse. But
6
now
for
we
5
have
will break 2.
and here we are, but that was weekly, by the way, and they counted your fingers before he lent you the money. So here we are. We're just we're in a. I think Peter Schiff labels it aptly. He said we're in a bizarro economic world. I mean, I can't see this place going any place but downhill and reaching a critical point.
Well, I got to be honest. I mean, it is bizarro. I mean, there's no two ways about that. And there's so much. I think we talked about this last time, so I'm not going to belabor it. I think this is going to be the new normal. This sliding kind of phenomenon, this bizarro sliding, circling the drain, if you will, kind of situation where you're seeing some types of deflationary forces on the price side. Oil, biggest example, but where aren't we seeing it? Food, healthcare, education. So we got like this thing there that's kind of putting our heads in a vice as far as trying to get our grip around that whole thing. The money supply is actually still going up. The aggregate money supply is still going up. So by definition, we still have inflation, right. Even though obviously at the price level, you get oil dropping the way it has. Well, then they can get on the news and they can say, well, see, now everything's great because gas is only $2.29 a gallon or whatever it is. So, spend away. But see, here's the thing about that. And this is what you don't get in the press. And this is why this show is important. We spend it all and then some in America, right? We're always borrowing money.
Right.
Okay. And whether it's the federal government, whether it's the state government, local governments, or individual, we spend it all. And then we just keep spending. So gas goes from $3.75 to $2.25. So there's $1.50. And they're like, wow, that's like America getting a $60 billion tax rebate. Did you hear that one?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. We spend it.
That's right.
We'll just go and buy something else. They're saying, well, this is going to cause economic growth. No, it's not. That money gets spent on gas or it gets spent on iPods, computers, food, whatever. It's going to get spent regardless. So we spend it all. So dropping gas by $1.50 a gallon is not going to cause economic growth. It's just going to shift spending from one place to somewhere else.
Yeah.
These people are idiots that sit there and say these things, and the little people, the Lilliputians in the audience, like at these political events, they sit there and they clap like little happy feet.
Right.
Like
I hate it. Yeah. When I watch that, I just get sick. I can't watch it.
Or like the distaste to the union.
Yeah.
The politicians, they sit there and they stand up and all this stuff, and it's like people are stupid. This is not causing any kind of growth. This drop in gas prices. Hey, now if you're like somebody like yourself, myself, somebody who doesn't do that, who doesn't spend it all and then some, if you're one of those people that spends say 75% of what you make, well, now you have some extra money in your pocket. You might decide that you might spend a few bucks somewhere else. So like for you, it might cause your output to change a little bit. Right. But here's the thing. If you're a saver, you're still going to be a saver regardless of what the price of gas is. You're not all of a sudden going to become a profligate spender just because the price of gas went down. It's a ludicrous notion that they try to push out there.
Yeah, but the mentality is so different. I obviously in 2 months I'm going to be at the ripe old age of 72, and so here we are in the good old days, as they say. You were taught to save. When I was a kid, I had a piggy bank. I saved money. I remember one time a friend of mine said, let's go to the movies. I said, I don't think I had any money. And I went around to my drawers and all that. And I had enough money to go to the movies to pay for him, me, and buy popcorn, Because we always had money around, always had cash. And, of course, cash at the time was real cash. It was silver, gold and stuff. But, no, basically silver coins. And But we always had money. And I've mentioned this in ad nauseum on my program, 100 times, in that, the day after Christmas, the first thing I did was open the Christmas Club account for the next year. I put $10 away, and then I had $120 in December, about the middle of December, and I went shopping, and I bought the presents and brought the balance down to zero, and everyone got their presents. I had no debt, and then I opened the Christmas account, a couple of days after Christmas again for the following year. We're doing the exact opposite. Now, we know this can't persist forever. This cannot go on forever. And yet when we were saving, those savings went into something productive because it was lent out for equipment, technology, and whatever that created jobs. It seems like we're doing everything in the reverse and expecting the government to come in and bail it out.
That's a good point, because when you look at, say you make $100 in a week, make a real small example.
I don't make that much.
Okay, all right. Well, let's say you did make $100 in a week.
Okay.
And you spend 75 of those dollars on food, lodging, whatever. That other $25, you say you lend it to another guy so he can start a business. That's capital. See, that's what we're not creating anymore because we don't save. When you save and you forego consumption, that creates capital.
That's correct.
Capital is used to create businesses, create expansion of businesses. That's economic growth right there, is when you have a growth of capital. When you have a negative savings rate, when you have consumer credit going up by several tens of billions of dollars a month, you're not creating any capital. Where's the capital being created? It's being destroyed, actually.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been doing. We've been destroying the pool of savings, the pool of capital in this country in the aggregate. Yeah, there's still savers in this country, don't get me wrong. But as a group, we're not creating any capital. So, this is why you have the government having to come in and the Federal Reserve coming in with their shenanigans, their printing programs, and all of these other kinds of things, because they're trying to basically cover over this whole concept that we don't have any capital left in this country, or it's a shrinking pool, I should say. It's not totally gone, but there's a shrinking pool of real savings and real genuine capital. And all of this other stuff that they do, the printing, the borrowing, the QE, all these programs, it's not the same. It's kind of like calories. You have good calories, and then you have these empty calories. And if you want to get the same energy as the good calorie, you got to have like 20 empty calories. It's the same thing with money.
Right.
So, a dollar of real capital, you want to bring in this funny money stuff and all this other shenanigans, you got to have, a huge amount in excess of that to get the same effect. And even there, what you notice is, and this I think we're sliding, is because it continues to take more and more and more and more, and the effects keep taking the average person down and down and down and down. You want to go to college now? You're looking at college is going to become a rich person's game before too long. 20 years ago, it was for everybody. My cousin went to college back, and she started like probably the mid-'80s. And she came out of school with almost no debt, and she did it by waiting tables during the summer and on breaks.
Yeah.
She paid for the whole thing. She had a tiny chunk, and she got a modest job, and it was gone pretty quick. Today, the kids are coming out with $40, $50, $60, $100,000 in student loans. There's no job prospects that they're going to pay for that quickly, so they're handicapped right from the start. This is one of the reasons why this has happened. And again, you look at college is a great example. When did all this start? The spiraling out of control of college costs, when the government came in and they came up with this fantastic idea called the guaranteed student loan.
Right.
They said, we're going to make it so that everybody can go. College is now an entitlement. And the universities were sitting there saying, hey, this is great. And don't get me wrong, they lobbied for this.
Oh, yeah.
This is fantastic, because now our numbers basically are guaranteed by the government, and we can build these posh athletic stadiums, and all these other facilities and all this stuff, and do these endowments and all this other garbage that they do. And basically our cash flow is guaranteed now by the government. But who's got the bill hanging around their neck? this kid who goes in and gets a degree in literature, or something like that. I'm not picking on literature, but a lot of these fields where there's just no jobs. So now you got $50,000 in loans. You have a useless degree basically,
right.
And what are you gonna do?
That's right.
And this is how it is with, and it happened with housing. Oh, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will basically guarantee that anybody can get a mortgage. Look what happened. Kaboom.
Right.
It's the same thing. Anytime the government steps in and interferes like this, it causes a problem.
Right.
So if you want to find where the problems are going to be tomorrow, look at where the government's beginning new interferences today.
Yeah.
That's basically a good place.
It's interesting. I saw a program. It was on the John Stossel show. There is a hospital that is a cash-only hospital. No insurance, nothing. You walk in, it's cash. Now, I have often said that if we got government out of the healthcare system, our healthcare cost would go down 90%. Now, I had nothing to back it up other than my own personal experience because my wife's an audiologist, and I've seen what we could do versus what we had to do. And I said, we can cut this by 90%. And believe it or not, he mentioned the cost of certain operations that I had, and I compared to the prices that he talked about, just general prices that he talked about on the John Stossel show. And guess what? It was 90% less. And so people say Affordable Care Act is making health care more affordable. No, it's making it a lot more expensive. Everyone is paying for it. And this is how the few get much, much richer and everyone else becomes impoverished. We play this game over and over and over again. And it's amazing how many people that I know that are they're not stupid and they're well educated, that they don't see it.
Well, here's the thing, and this has become a really good way of kind of debugging a lot of this stuff that comes out of Washington. Affordable Care Act. They're very Goebbels-like now in the way they approach the propaganda and the pushing of these different programs. If they say it's affordable, it's not.
Right.
If they say that it's a Consumer Protection Act, it's not.
Right.
If they say it's a Patriot Act, there's nothing patriotic about it.
Right. Exactly.
This is a trend. People, you're just against. No. It's a pattern.
Right.
It's an undeniable pattern that's going on with regards to. It's not just economic stuff. It's everything. So there's a good place to start. Look at how they push these things, because they're usually going to do the opposite. Like I said, you want to find out what the problems tomorrow are going to be? Look where the government's interfered. All right, what's the latest interference? Well, the healthcare is pretty recent. Guess what? It's causing problems. Guess what? It's going to cause a lot more problems.
Right.
You're seeing 90% discount when you go to a cash-only clinic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're not the first person that's mentioned that, and Stossel is not the first guy that's come out and demonstrated that. There's numerous doctors that are going off the grid, so to speak, with regards to the health insurance system. They're saying, you know what, we're not going to take any insurance. We're $25 a doctor's visit.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Instead of $125, if you go through insurance.
If a person is poor and they have chickens in their backyard and they tell the doctor, I'll give you a dozen eggs for a year, the doctor would say, fine, no problem. I mean, how easy that would be, I also heard that they may be building ships, that doctors are buying ships so they can go offshore, out of the 10-mile limit, practice their medicine, be cash only. People, convalesce on the ship and whatever. Then they get a nice boat ride home, and it costs about 1/10 of what it costs right now. And you go on a little cruise at the same time. And everyone makes on the deal. Yeah. A friend of mine is an anesthesiologist. I had coffee with him on Friday. He said it's amazing. Every year, the doctors are allocated less and less and less of the appropriations for certain items. And he says it's getting to the point where they're bailing out. Well, what happens when the supply continues to increase, which it is, and the demand continues to increase, but the supply continues to diminish? the government does not believe in basic economics. They have their own, I don't know what to call it, but they don't have basic economics. And it seems that no one in higher office in our country ever took remember Eco 101, a very basic supply and demand. All of that sort of like his old hat doesn't apply anymore. They have a new way. They have a way around it, and it's never, ever, ever worked. Let's just hold it right there just for a second, Andy. We're going to stop for station identification. We'll be back in about 1 minute, please. Hold on now. Thank you.
You're listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Your political talk derived from a historical perspective. Not always palatable, but good food for thought. Pure libertarian talk with host Joe Cristiano. LibertyTalkRadio.com.
Express Test is your go-to company for on-site occupational health testing services. That's right, we said on-site. That means we will meet you at your facility for a free health and occupational safety consultation. Express Test specializes in hearing conservation, respiratory protection, and employee safety. We can help you establish viable programs tailored to your business and employee needs. For your free consultation, call 918-743-2929 or visit us at expresstest.com. That's 918-743-2929 or expresstest.com. Do you find yourself asking, what did you say? Aaron Cristiano of Ranch Acres Audiology has over 25 years of experience helping patients just like you.
Hearing requires conservation. We need to be aware and we need to be responsible for our own hearing health.
Understand more with a little help from Ranch Acres Audiology. Call 918-749-7711. That's 918-749-7711 to learn more. We'd like to thank attorney Constance Squires for her support of Liberty Talk Radio. If you want a comprehensive way to affordably avoid legal issues, call Constance Squires. For a free consultation, call 918-254-9283 or go online at isthyWillDone.com.
This isn't your typical talk radio show. This is Liberty Talk Radio.
Folks, we're back. This is Liberty Talk Radio. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano. We're pleased and honored to have as our guest Andy Sutton, economist from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We're discussing about general economic issues and how they affect you. During the second part of our broadcast, we ask you to call with your question or comments, toll free, 888-773-4496. That's 888-773-4496. Our direct number is 646-652-4620. Call either number. Andy enjoys answering questions from the public, so our listeners. So please do call in. There is no such thing as a stupid question, and he wants to know what's on your mind, and we can create some dialogue there. So 888-773-4496 and 646-652-4620. Okay. Andy, are you there? Let's say Andy on
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
I don't see you. You're gone.
I'm here.
You're gone. Oh, there you go.
You see me now?
No, I don't see you. There you go. Okay. I missed you. I was starting to miss you. Andy, I don't understand this negative interest rate. You got to help me with this. I mean, in my businesses, I always hold a little bit of money on the side, not much, because you never know month to month. So I try to keep things in a little savings account aside from the checking account. And I try to keep it consistent just in the event something happens. And it galls me. I have, several thousand in an account, and then I get, my interest, 17 cents. I mean, who in their right mind who is trying to save money for the future would actually save money?
Well, see, this is the problem. And you look at, your 17 cents or whatever you're getting. A negative interest rate, for the people out there would be if you're paying them 17 cents to hold your money. That's a negative interest rate.
Right.
So you save your 25 cents on the dollar, or your 10 cents on the dollar, and you stick it in the bank. And we're going to get to the real funny part of this, and it's terribly ironic. And you're going to pay them to keep your money.
Right.
They're going to loan that money out, and they're going to charge, if they're doing a little mortgage or something like that at a low rate, it's still they're going to make 3%, and you're paying them to do this. Here's the interesting thing. The banks always push that, well, your money's safe with us. And we didn't hear that for a long, long time because we didn't have any banking issues. But now you look at the situation now with this whole bail-in concept being out there. So I'm going to pay the bank to take my money and store it and protect it for me, and hope that they don't run into trouble, in the derivatives market or, some other place. Because if they do, not only am I paying them negative interest to store my money, then they're going to take it.
Yeah.
I mean, why would, in that kind of a situation, what incentive is there for somebody to keep money in a bank other than for the convenience of paying bills, writing checks, and hitting an ATM? I mean, there's no point. There's no incentive to keep money in a bank. Even the negative interest rates alone are zero interest rates. Well, if you're not going to pay me to keep my money, well, why the heck would I give it to you for?
Well, then if people stop saving altogether, and they should, I mean, even at 1 or 2%, they should stop saving, because with inflation, they're still negative. I mean, there's no incentive to save. Where's the logic there? I mean, to me, that goes, someone's mind went somewhere, bingo, out the window.
No. See, this makes perfect sense. Because remember what I said before about the capital and the pool of capital shrinking. So you need more and more distortions to kind of preserve an image of normalcy. This is one of those distortions. We discourage savings. We get people to spend it all and then some. And not only that, what we do is we take the people that do like to save money and we disincentivize them too, and put them in the situation where, okay, you want to make some money today. You want to make some gain, some interest. What do you have to do? You have to go in the stock market. Right. You have to walk into the J.P. Morgan, Chase, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, retardate casino,
right,
and put your money down on the wheel, spin the wheel. You can't keep it in the bank. CDs are a joke. Money markets are a joke. Most preferred stocks are even a joke, because when you figure in the taxes, the inflation, those are negative. So what are you going to do? You can either put it in the casino or you can spend it. Either way, they win.
Right.
So there's a perfect logic to it. That's why things are the way they are, because they don't want you to save.
Well, what's the difference between the indentured servants of yore and today, when people are constantly in debt to the government, and the government has a right to even confiscate the funds that are rightfully theirs? What's the real difference between the two?
We don't call it indentured servitude. That's what the difference is.
Don't make me laugh, because my back hurts so much, and I just had the surgery, and I laugh, and oh boy, the stitches, I'm sure are going to rip right off. But to me, the whole thing is so insane. I'm still doing the same thing I did back in 1954 and 64. I have some money left over, I save it. I don't put it all in the bank anymore because I don't trust the bank. I put into other stuff, anything that I know that's tangible, whether it be food or fixing the house or anything that I know that I can get a return on personally myself. And I am very frightened. And it seems that those people who have much less than I do, and a lot, are less frightened. And I go, well, then I must be the insane person. You feel like you're living in the bizarro world, and the real world is out there, but you refuse to accept it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's because you have most of the people in this country have bought into this whole spend-a-thon thing because it's cool. Hey, basically, they look at the government kind of as like a parent, because they don't want to be independent. They don't like freedom. They don't like liberty. They made that clear. They want to have their hand held. They want to have their derriere wiped by the government. And I'm sorry for being, a little bit crass, but that's the truth. I mean, this is the way people are today. They want all these things just done for them. They don't want to have to think. They don't want to have to lose sleep over money or jobs or any of this. They want all this stuff just done for them. Well, there's a price to be paid for that. So, for that, it's like Franklin said, a little temporary security, they're giving up their liberty and their freedom.
Right.
They see, the thing is, they don't care. They don't see that as a big deal, because over the generations now, really, and it's not been that long that this has been this way. It's only really since the 60s. They started the Great Society, and then even in the 70s, the 80s, people were still kind of resilient, and then for some reason, like the mid 80s into the early 90s, people just broke down, and they caved in and they bought into this nonsense. So they like, basically their parent, if you will, their government is saying it's okay if you want it. Hey, remember George Bush said go to Disney World, isn't that what he said back in?
That's right.
2000?
That's right.
The recession. Take a trip to Disney World. Go on vacation. That nobody else has really done that since. But that statement that he made, that's how the government wants you to think. So you get these little snapshots occasionally into like the epicenter of this whole government, mind control thinking propaganda machine. They give you these little windows where you get to actually see what they really want. And okay, yeah, they want you to go and take a vacation and don't worry about it. Just leave it to us. We're from the government. We're here to help.
Right.
They can't fix a pothole on the road, but they're going to manage the healthcare system. They can't fix a bridge, but they're gonna make sure that the banking system remains stable. Give me a break. These are people that are like the class presidents and the quarterback of the football team in high school, and now they're congressmen. And some of these guys are smart. A lot of them are bums. Most of them don't really know that much. But here's the thing: they all have advisors. They all have these guys that are advising them, and these guys know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly that what we're talking about right here doesn't work. Right. They know that. They know that supply and demand. They know that there's laws, and they know that there's consequences when you break those laws, but they don't care because they're lawless. Yeah. I mean, look how they behave everywhere else.
But they're making on it. They're making on it, right? And they're making on it at our expense. So, if I can drain all the money out of your bank account, I'm a happy camper.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the thing. If they don't respect the laws that'll land them in jail for breaking, why would they respect the laws of economics?
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, they do stuff that's way worse than this on a daily basis, most of them.
So what I don't understand is where do we see this going? Something is going to pop somewhere because it cannot sustain itself continually this way. Obviously, if they try to correct the situation, we have to go through a correction. And if we went through a correction today, it would probably be several times, who knows, maybe 3 times, 10 times worse than it would have been if we did the right thing back in 2008. Now, they are deathly afraid of that. So it seems that they're in a catch-22, that they can't correct the situation, but all they can do is exasperate it, and they know it cannot last forever. So one of these days, something will happen, and no one knows what that will be. And when that happens, you get people like Jim Rickards, who's not the dumbest in the world. He's brilliant when it comes to money and international finance. They're saying that it would be catastrophic to the world if this, when it occurs. Not if, but it has to occur because it has to correct somehow. Because we cannot continue to build a house on sand and expect it to stand up when the hurricane comes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I mean, I think what you've got here from a policy standpoint now, and if you listen to what Janet Yellen has to say, regardless of how much that might cause your head to hurt, you get some windows into the thinking there also. And it's kind of like, a pilot of a jumbo jet is out and his wings fall off. So he knows he's going down.
Right.
But what he's trying to do is he's trying not to crash. He's trying to set the plane down as gently as he possibly can. So either way, you're going to end up at the bottom.
Right.
I think what these guys are trying to do is, and this plays into, their ulterior motives as well. If they can set this thing down real gently, we're going to end up at the same place as if it just goes boom and falls off a cliff.
Right.
However,
there's no gentleman.
If it just goes and crashes, they stand to lose a lot of power, influence, money, wealth. If they can just set it down real gently, or maybe just get it down real close to the ground, and then it just kind of, that last little bit on it, as a crash, they stand to be able to gain a lot from doing that over having the thing just fall apart now.
Yeah.
So I think that's what the plan is, and that's what we've been doing. We've been sliding. We've been kind of like coming in for this. It's been rough.
Soft landing.
Yeah,
we're coming in for the soft landing, right?
Yeah. We're going to get to the same place. We're going to get to that baseline zero. It's just how we get there, the path that we end up taking.
But doesn't Greece have it right? They want to divorce themselves from the euro. They want to continue their programs. Let their currency inflate, to Pluto somewhere, and that's fine, because that won't affect anyone outside of Greece. In fact, it would enhance everyone else. Why is there this big push to keep Greece, which cheated itself, fraudulently cheated, to enter the euro, and now they say, well, we lied and we cheated and we stole and all that other stuff in order to get in, but we don't want to really leave now. I mean, this stuff makes no sense. They should have just said, hey, these statements were fraudulent. You're out. Cut it out. Give us all the euros back. Print whatever type of currency you want. It'll be 1,000 to 1 to the euro. Fine with me. What's wrong with that? Why the big hullabaloo about that?
Well, these currency unions, it's another form of that indentured servitude, like you were saying before. Well, if they maintain Greece in that eurozone, they're maintaining control over those people. They control the money. It's like the what's his face? It said, "I care not about who makes the laws; just give me control of the money." Was that one of the Rothschilds that said that?
That's Rothschild.
It's the same here. So you have that first of all. The second thing you have is that they don't want a mass exodus from the euro. So if Greece leaves, well, the next thing you know, Italy, Spain, Portugal, they might all want to leave. And they don't want that right now either. It's kind of it's the same thing we just talked about here. It's this whole gentle slide, and they want to keep their thumb on top of these guys too. So we keep them in the euro. That way Brussels is in control as opposed to actually the Greek people. And the IMF obviously is in there too, and the World Bank, and we know what great institutions and freedom-loving outfits they are. They get to exert all their control over Greece and the Greek people and the resources of Greece and the economic output of Greece, and basically hold it hostage. And they get to take the moral high ground with the rest of the world, because they can say, well, see, the thing is, they lied to get in here in the first place, so now they've got to eat their dessert here.
Right.
Take the medicine.
Yeah. It's interesting that people consider silver and gold as the ancient relic, and yet money created electronically out of thin air with nothing backing it up has more value. And I can never understand that thinking. I know if I go to a jewelry store and I buy a watch that is, or a ring that is 18 karat gold, I pay through the nose for it because it has some intrinsic value. We don't seem to apply that to money at all. Once it's that gold ring gets melted down and becomes a coin, it's worthless in the minds of the people.
Nothing.
And I've said this before, and I'm repeating myself. The next time I get asked to speak to Rotary clubs and things like that, and the next time I'm asked, what I'm going to do is walk into the audience, and I'm going to ask anyone if they have a very expensive watch, a real high-end Bulliver watch or a Rolex, and I'm going to ask them if I can have it. And I'm going to take it from him, put it on my wrist, and I'm going to the dollar store. I'm going to buy a plastic like Superman watch or something like that and give it to him and say, well, thank you.
A gumball machine.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you very much. And then continue my speech. And of course, the person says, well, where's my watch? You say, no, I gave you your watch back. Wait, this is a piece of plastic. I gave you a, one with jewels in it, and it's 18 karat gold and whatever. Wait a minute. Did you not scream this way on January 1st, 1965, when they took the silver out of your coins? It's the same logic. It just what scares me is that I'm not very bright, and I'll be the first to admit it. But to me, this stuff is so clear, and to most people, it's like this foggy, ethereal thinking out there. And to me, it's a matter of common sense. It's almost like the farmer back in the Depression days. They put their money, which was backed by gold at the time, in fence posts. They weren't stupid. They weren't going to put it in the bank. They didn't trust them, and they were the country bumpkins, No, they were the smart people. And I almost feel like I'm the farmer with hiding money in the fence post at this point.
Well, no, that's exactly right. And the point about the watch, and that's a perfect way to illustrate. When you do it that way, guess what? People still understand value. My gold bull of a watch versus, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle watch that Joe just bought out of the gumball machine.
Right.
People understand the difference in value. Hey, this one, this one looks nicer. It's got some heft to it. You take a stack of dollar bills and then a little handful of silver coins. If you really think about it, and I was talking to a kid the other day, and the kid's he's 21, and he wanted to buy some silver. So the first thing I did was congratulate him on, making a smart decision for, trying to diversify something out of the paper realm. I mean, he understands to a degree what's going on, which is great. I mean, it's a young person that's getting it. Hey, that's wonderful. But we were talking about this whole concept of value, and that was what he wanted to know, kind of the same thing. Why is it that people don't get this? And my answer is, first of all, ultimately, I don't know, but I think that what we've had going on here, when you think about economics, what is the economics? It's the study of human action, the allocation of scarce resources. Well, what's behind that? Psychology. I think what has happened here is the government and this banking cartel, they've employed more psychologists than they have economists.
Yeah, right.
And they've been trying to change the mental model of this country into accepting these ludicrous concepts. This idiotic construct that, hey, when you put your money in the bank, you take a shared responsibility now with the derivatives department of the brokerage side of that bank, that you don't even know what's going on there. There's no transparency, but now you have a shared responsibility. See, everything here it's like this distorted capitalism. It's heads we win, tails we lose. Right. If things go well, we want to have our capitalism and we want to have our gains. But when it goes bad, then we want to become socialists. Right. And they've pushed that in every single healthcare, education, money,
right?
Everything, energy, everything is like that.
Right.
Heads we win, it's capitalism. Tails we lose, we socialize. You're on the hook.
Yeah. The people that I have respect for, and there's several. There's a Kevin Freeman. There's the Jim Ricketts, there's the Max Kaisers, and I can go Peter Schiff's, and I can go on a list of dozens of them that I've read their books or listened to their podcast. They all have some negative, I wouldn't say dire, but mostly negative predictions for 2015. Some are dire predictions. Some are saying, by May, the doors are closing. Now, I know no one knows that, and they know that no one knows that. Everything may even get better or may seem better. We have about 5 minutes less. And by the way, we haven't had one caller yet, and I'm really hacked off. It's 646-652-4620. Please call in. We still have some time for at least one call. 646-652-4620 or 888-773-4496. Where do you see? Give me your prediction. And I know your crystal ball is out at the car wash, but see if you can do without it right now.
Actually, I think my crystal ball is in the junkyard. But 2015. See, here's the thing. What's going on right now? There's a couple possibilities. I mentioned one earlier. This European situation with the banks, that could foment into something very easily. It could very easily, just as easily, not. This could go nowhere right now. The situation with oil, being low. It looks like that's going to continue for a while, and we didn't get to really talk about that as much as I would have liked, but that's okay. We talked about great stuff, and it's all good stuff. So I mean, that's not a big deal. That is going to create an illusion that things are good. So
right.
when you're thinking about 2015, especially for the first half of the year, you've got to temper these dire predictions that you're hearing from some people by that. The illusion is going to be that things are doing pretty good because of the whole
right.
oil, and that's what the media, the government, the establishment, they're going to hang their hat on that and say, well, but gas is cheap. Gas is cheap. You got a $60 billion tax rebate. That's what you're going to hear. So keep that in mind. The second thing, and I've been looking over my computer screen, and I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of this. In 1992, the wealth gap between upper and middle income households, upper income households made 3.6 times the amount of money in terms of their net worth. They had that much, assets, 3.6 times that. Today, it's almost double that.
Yeah.
That gap keeps getting wider every year.
Right.
That is one of those trends that we're looking at, and we're seeing more and more. We're seeing like this really, narrowing pyramid that just blows out at the bottom.
Right.
Where you've got this very small group at the top, and you have this huge mass of, and I'm going to say it, you've got this huge mass of indentured servants at the bottom.
Right.
They just don't know they're indentured servants yet because they haven't been called that. But really, they're debt slaves. Right. They get up in the morning. You mentioned a fella he's depressed. He has no assets. He has debt up to his earlobes. They get up, they go to work, they pay bills. There's no saving. There's no how should I say, pleasurable utility from their work.
You mean they pay?
Bills.
Andy, excuse me. I'd like to just modify that slightly. They're paying the late fees on their bills. In most cases, and that's the case. Is that they're not even paying the bill off. They're just paying the late fee so that they don't get a delinquency notice.
Maybe a little piece of the interest. Yeah. So you look at all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that all points to we're going to continue to slide. So I'm going to say, for 2015, that slide's going to continue. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Will we get a drop off? I don't know. No. We could. We might not.
Yeah.
And I really wish that when guys come out, I mean, I know it sounds really cool to sit there and say, when the markets crash in the fall, but the problem is the more they do that, and when it doesn't happen, it disarms people.
That's right. Disarms
we need to be arming people.
That's right. Yeah.
We need to arm people, not disarm.
Yeah.
So, we're going to keep sliding, and we may see some bumps from Europe, the whole oil thing, which, is more of a geopolitical event than an economic supply-demand driven event. Yeah. I mean, we can make that conclusion very quickly. Yeah. This is a power play.
All of our conversation, our dialogue should convert from spending to producing. We don't talk about producing. When I was young, everything was, what are you going to do? What's your work? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Today it's, how are you spending? How are you spending? How are you spending? We never talk, TV never talks about production. People, programs where you have young people living in apartments in New York that cost $30,000 a month. They don't have a job, and they go out to eat at night at the steakhouse downstairs, which costs $40 a plate. But they have no job, and they're having a great time. I could never do that. I had to eat the hamburger or the hot dog, and if I was lucky, and that was it. And I had to save the rest. I had a job with a finance company when I was young, and I saved $5 a week. And that was a lot of money because I was making $362.50 a month gross with a college education. And I saved $5, but I always save $5 a week. Anyway, but I'll go on that thing. Andy, our time is just about up. If you would like to tell our audience a little bit about yourself and how they can reach you, to answer any questions or whatever, please do so right now.
First of all, just going back for 2 seconds, what you just said about the saving, that's the mentality. That's that shift that's happened over the last 50 years. We've shifted from what you described to saving $5 a week, even if it's only $5 a week, saving something to just going out and just blowing it all.
Right.
So that's where the shift has occurred, and we can talk for hours about why that's happened. But I've been trying to come up with a way to describe myself. I'm formerly of the financial community. I got out because basically, you're looking at casinos and Hotel Californias when it comes to the banks. You can check out anytime you like, but you can really never leave. And, you're in a situation where it's not investing anymore. It's gambling. I'm not a gambler, and I'm not going to, I don't gamble for myself. I'm certainly not going to gamble on behalf of anybody else. So the system is corrupt. I left it last year, and I still want to try to help people out. So we're doing these things. You need to kick me in the butt so I write more articles. And I'm really telling you to kick me in the butt so I write more articles. This wealth gap is a good one. The oil thing is a good one. So we've got a couple here.
Okay.
But that's what we're trying to do. I still have the website, Sutton-associates.net. The company no longer exists. The only reason I'm keeping the website is because there's hundreds, tens of thousands, whatever, of links back to that site for articles. Right. And I don't just take those articles away from people. Yep. So we're going to keep the domain, and we'll keep that pretty much the same. 2 Cents comes out, hopefully, tomorrow I'll have something. Great. And I still do the quarterly Sensible Investor. It's more of an economic newsletter. There's no recommendations for any kind of paper assets or securities or anything like that. I will talk about precious metals, commodities, the economy, geopolitics, geoeconomics, things like that. I think it's interesting. The feedback has generally been pretty good. So, I mean, that's how you can find me. There's still a contact form on the website. You can, that'll shoot me an email, and you can ask your question or make comments, or, if people want to, say, hey, I'd like to hear more about this in an article, send me a message. Because chances are, if you do, probably there's a bunch of other people that want to hear about that too. So, I don't like to say we're like a DJ or anything like that, but put a request in, and if it's something I can do, I'll do it. I just want to help people out.
And you're doing this on your own. So if anyone wants to support your cause, and I highly recommend that they do, they should just write to you at Sutton-associates.net and get the information that way, or what? How should they do that?
Yeah, they can find contact information on the website. There's a button right on the main page for a contact form. And like I said, that'll zip me an email, and you can make contact with me that way.
Okay.
So that's the best way of doing it.
Okay. Andy, thank you so much for being our guest this morning. I hope you will accept our invitation to return the third Thursday of next month.
Absolutely, Joe. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you very much.
Appreciate you having me.
My pleasure. Right. Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye now.